out of nowhere, you guys were selling the most in weight. And I was like, wow, where did these guys come from? 16% of all imports of last year was you. Is that about right?
I can't share two actual data, but 21 tons roughly sold, not imported, sold.
Wow.
Yeah, sometimes you have to be lucky.
Did you know that this moment was going to come?
We just were there very early with large quantities available.
How did that happen?
Good quality, but good pricing. And in each, let's say, quality tier, compliance in terms of pharmaceutical quality is the key. Patient safety. We can't compromise on that.
What's next for you guys?
That's where High Tide comes in.
Can you talk us through that a little bit? How did that happen? Why did you decide to now take money?
That's another story.
Your philosophy was very different. You guys are quite the lean operation also in terms of staff now still,
yes.
Right? Like how many people are you guys? Also no big fancy offices?
No, we are sitting in containers, yeah.
That is badass, man. That's pretty crazy.
The Cannabis Conversation, powered by Lumino. Exploring the legal cannabis industry and the people shaping it. Today's guest is Stefan Adomeit, Managing Director of Remexian Pharma, the leading importer and wholesaler of medical cannabis by volume in Germany in 2025. Now, on to the show.
Stefan, thank you so much for coming today. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me here.
Fantastic. There's lots of different things to discuss here. For me, Remexian has been kind of an elusive figure, just as yourself, for a long period. And then I showed up at an event and everyone told me you guys were the biggest on selling the most in product. So I'm really curious to see how you set this whole thing up, what your background is. So maybe let's start there. How did your career shape you to set up Remexian?
I'm not sure if it's such an exciting story, but I would say a classic story. So I work also in a small pharmaceutical company. It's named Innovator, sitting here in Ludwigsfelde next to Berlin 2. Our shareholders always wanted to have different businesses in the healthcare sector. So 2018, they thought, okay, maybe cannabis is a good industry. Look into it. So that's what I did. And then we founded Remexian first to take part in the tender of growing cannabis here in Germany. And then obviously we didn't win. And then I thought, okay, what should we do with that entity? Let's stick to cannabis. Let's look into it, how to bring cannabis to Germany. And then I hired for Remexian, that's the most important hire. I hired my co-managing director, Francesco. Yeah, and then we built Remexian from there.
And what made you look at this vertical specifically, import and distribution?
That's where our strengths were. And just to explain, the small pharmaceutical company is a parallel import company, which means we are buying pharmaceuticals in several European countries, bring them to Germany, relabel them, and then sell them in Germany to compete with the originator on that product. So that's what Innovator is doing.
Is that once a pharmaceutical becomes a generic, you guys?
No, it's branded
really
pharmaceuticals.
Fantastic.
We have that's very specific, but in a certain market like EU is, if you sell a specific product, not only pharmaceutical but product, your brand and your patent rights expire for that specific pack as soon as you have sold it. And when you have and if the product stays in that market, so I can't bring it to US, but I can work with that specific pack in the EU.
So you can develop your own brand on patent?
No. You sell it under the
original
brand. Yeah.
Got you.
Just a little cheaper. That's
Understood.
the idea.
Understood. Okay. How do you look at not getting the tender? Are you happy about it, looking back at it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I thought so.
Of course. Yeah, that's sometimes you have to be lucky.
Sometimes you have to be lucky, absolutely. And then you guys focused on the one vertical you guys know like the back of your hand, basically.
Pharmaceuticals are highly regulated and cannabis is at the end. It's a pharmaceutical product. So that's what we knew, what we had experience in. And so we said, why not?
And your co-founder as well came from that background?
No, actually not.
Actually not?
No. Franco was more in food in the past, but he has a very strong drive So we are very different from each other. Both have different strengths, and that's what we bring to the table. He's a driver, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing. Finding a balanced team, right?
Yes.
What is the gap in talent, and then finding somebody to fit
That
into
was more luck than
And-
purpose, but it worked out. Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. I've got some statistics here. Around 16% of all imports of last year was you. Is that about right? That's what it says online somewhere.
Yeah, it's. I think that was an earlier figure in the year, but I can't share too actual data. But for last year, I think we sold 21 tons roughly.
Wow.
So not imported, sold.
Fantastic. I'm trying to understand how that happened because, as I mentioned, out of nowhere, I remember never hearing of Remexian. Going to like an expo farm, you guys had one of the biggest stands there with Cantourage, and everyone told me you guys were selling the most in weight, and I was like, wow, where did these guys come from?
Yeah.
Was there like a moment where you guys exploded, or was it just steady growth throughout the life cycle?
It's first building the foundation and executing on that. And then, as I said, Franco is the driver. He has a lot of energy and he wanted to be big. Then I'm always a little careful. And so combining this, we were prepared. And then I think over the year change 23 to 24, we prepared our first very attractive pricing brand, which is Madrecan, because we thought, what is the reason behind very expensive products? They are not always very good. So that's an issue. And having the patient paying a high price, very high price, because a lot of patients pay for themselves. So we thought it should be possible to bring a product which is compliant and good in pharmaceutical quality, but at an affordable price. So that was the idea. So that started very well in January 24. And then April came. So we were prepared. We had a very good offer. Franco bought a lot of biomass. And so we were lucky.
You were lucky.
For sure.
Fantastic. But I mean, one thing I'm interested in is, and you kind of touched on it, is I think a lot of companies some of your competitors raised tens of millions in their early years, built fancy offices, huge teams, building premium brands, and selling at, everyone was trying to sell at that premium value. Your philosophy was very different. Explain how and why. I mean, you guys are very lean operation for what you guys have achieved. Talk me through your philosophy there a little bit, how you set up a business and why did you not go for the big investment route?
Yeah. So maybe that's because of our old shareholders, because they always said, be careful and don't invest too much money, be profitable first, and then we talk about money. So what we did, we got a little money, very little from them. And then we had our sister companies helping us with expertise, actually, and also with stuff. Because if you build a new company, you have to hire people, but you don't use them fully to what they can, because they have so different tasks, so many tasks in a small company, and you can't use their potential. So what we asked from our sisters was, okay, let's say IT. It's a good example. You can't fully use an IT guy in a company which is 5 people. So we asked for several hours of their IT to help us, and then they invoiced it to us. So there was no need to build a big structure. We were very flexible, asset light, I would say.
Yeah.
And that helped us a lot, keeping our cost low, but also being flexible in growing. So as soon as we needed more people, for, let's say in the warehouse, we have our own warehouse actually in Ludwigsfelde, but it's next to our sister company, and the people there are trained in our warehouse too. So in the beginning, not today, but in the beginning when we needed help, because there were a lot of orders also, they sent people over to help us. So we were very flexible without having to pay them the whole month. So that was very helpful.
I love the efficiency here.
Yeah.
That's really cool. And can you speak to what that little money is? Like, how much did you guys start with in comparison?
It was in total, it was less than 1 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
When did you hit profitability?
Actually, in 24. 23, we had a little loss. I think 22 was close to zero.
Mm-hmm.
In 23, we experienced one thing. Everybody dealt with Bedrocan, and Bedrocan was very expensive. And in the middle of, and not only Bedrocan, but other products too, in the middle of 23, we had an oversupply.
I remember that.
Yeah, so it was a small market, and we had an oversupply. So prices dropped dramatically. And what we saw then is there is a tipping point for each product at which you sell much more of the product. Why? It's not a classic consumer-driven market, but patients have to pay for themselves, at least a big portion of patients. That portion has grown, of course, but when they have to pay for themselves, it's important how expensive the product is. So
Absolutely.
we learned that, and then we said, okay, that has to be the focus. Good quality, but good pricing. And in each, let's say, quality tier. And I'm talking perceived quality, not pharmaceutical quality,
Yes.
because pharmaceutical quality is non-negotiable.
Exactly. It's like a standard now.
It has to be.
Absolutely.
But it's at the same time, a lot of patients are talking about quality, meaning different things than pharmaceutical
Bag
quality.
appeal.
Flower size and all these things, which are sometimes the complete opposite than what you would look for in terms of pharmaceutical quality.
Yeah.
Flower size is a good example. If you have to dry a flower to make it safe, bioburden low and all these things, then a small flower is much better. A bigger flower is
Moisture.
a nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of pharmaceutical quality, that would be better to have small flowers. But of course, patients would complain.
Absolutely. Was there a big learning curve for you guys in terms of you came from pharmaceuticals, you were probably used to just looking at pharmaceutical quality and that kind of vertical? Was there a big learning curve understanding what the market actually wants? Because I remember early days when I was working with pharmaceutical companies, the products they were bringing in often weren't received well by the market because they were only looking at the pharmaceutical quality and didn't try to understand the consumer. They then came to us to hire people that understood the end consumer, and then those brains kind of made it happen. But yeah, was there a big learning curve there for you?
Of course. But it went maybe the other way around than most of the other cannabis companies, because we have a few companies which started, let's say, from the cannabis culture and, as you said, with big money, and then had to learn pharmaceutical compliance over time. So with that, it was the other way.
So you guys knew that first before?
Yes.
And how did that happen?
You mean the learning, or how we knew
How you knew?
Yeah, it's just because of our background with our sister companies. So we knew compliance in terms of pharmaceutical quality is the key. You can't deliver a product which is not safe to patients. You have vulnerable patients, and that's not possible. And also, if you think about what would happen if you have, let's say, a big scandal or whatever, how it would harm you and your company, that's not an option.
Got you.
So that's the first. And then you have to try to meet the, let's say, patient demand in terms of what they perceive as quality.
You guys are quite the lean operation also in terms of staff now still,
Yes.
right? Like how many people are you guys?
It's around 35.
35.
Yeah.
35. Also no big fancy offices. Just,
No, we are sitting in containers, yeah. A container office. Very nice.
That is badass, man. That's pretty crazy.
And we actually like it there.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. Fantastic. Now, you guys, back in August, were big in the headlines. I think that was one of the first signs of real money flowing back into the cannabis market here in Europe, with an acquisition of, or majority shareholder now being High Tide. Can you talk us through that a little bit? How did that happen? Why did you decide to now take money? And then I've got some other questions around evaluation and things like that.
So how did that happen? So we met Raj, the CEO of High Tide. I think it is a little more than 1 year ago. So it's not so long.
So it happened quick once you met each other.
It's very quick.
Wow.
I think High Tide was looking for targets here in Europe, especially in Germany, as Germany is the biggest market. It's legal, it's highly regulated, meaning safe in terms of compliance. High Tide, as you know, is a Nasdaq listed company, so compliance is very important for them. So they had a look into the German market, and then, as you said, at that point in time, we were relatively big, and so an attractive target, I would say, from their point of view. So how did that happen from our side? I would say he approached us, and that was the point. So we were looking for little money to further expand. He approached us and then obviously made a good offer to our shareholders, and they were convinced that it will help Remexian grow.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we see today. I would say if you look in the Canadian market, High Tide is a very, very big player there in retail, true. But in Canada, the truth is the same growers which grow medical cannabis are growing for the recreational market too.
Yep.
So it's a statement. And we now try to work together in terms of relationship building and understanding better what growers need, and then building these relationships. Yeah. So that's where High Tide comes in. The businesses are very, very different, but High Tide has the approach of delivering the cheapest price possible for the same product. They don't produce. So they sell like everybody else in retail Canada, but they try to do it at the most affordable or attractive pricing.
Same strategy.
Same mindset. Yeah, highly regulated and very lean, attractive pricing. So that is a good fit.
Yeah, if you had somebody who was just trying to push premium products, suddenly that would not fully align.
And needs a lot of money for that. So that's actually maybe it's not my theory, but I like that thinking. If you don't have money, you can't spend. If you have money, you will spend. So that's
I've heard that before.
Yeah. So and for at least for us, it's true.
So just to understand correctly, I think so. High Tide, they didn't just bring money, but they bring a certain level of gravitas and procurement and supply chain or supplier network. Is that the main?
Yeah, supplier network in terms of relationships. Yes, of course we can't procure from them. That's not possible.
Got you.
So just to make that clear, but we can procure together in terms of negotiations with growers. And just to clarify that, so far High Tide didn't put money into Remexian. They paid the shareholders.
Yes.
So what we work with is what we earned before.
Got you.
And I would say, and actually what our banks are giving us. We have a strong relationship with our banks for a long time. And as we came from pharmaceutical background, there was trust, and it's possible to be funded by banks in Germany. That's
Well, I didn't know that until I knew I got that 25 million. I was like, wow, how did they do that? But for you, you've been doing this the whole time.
Yes. Yeah, it's
Got you.
and it's not a big story because in the end, if you have a business plan and you can convince your bank, and it's a regulated market. It's pharmaceutical cannabis. Recreational would be different from a compliance perspective for banks, but medical cannabis, that's possible.
Even other clients of mine who came from like apotheken or pharmacies and then moved into like telemedicine or whatever, they're still struggling to get banks to really accept them.
Yeah, it's a question: is your business model compliant? That's what banks are checking, and we all know that there are huge discussions around telemedicine and how to advertise, how to approach patients, and I think that might be one of the reasons why banks are careful in that business.
Yeah. How is the whole deal gone with High Tide? How is life now together? Has it realized itself as you expected, or are there new challenges that you didn't see coming?
I wouldn't say we didn't see them, but of course there are challenges always.
Yeah.
If you have a M&A process, it's always challenging to bring these different cultures, different company sizes. High Tide has 2,000 employees around. We are much smaller. It's a North American company, and all the things you can think of are a challenge. Yes, but at the same time, High Tide is very special in that sense, because what we learned so far is High Tide is very much concerned about compliance. They look into every single step what they do, and they value compliance very much. So as it is our focus here in Germany, and the market is so different here, they trust our approach. And yes, of course, they want to understand, they want to learn, and also do we. We want to learn what they are doing, and we are discussing a lot. But so far, I can say we are very happy because they understand it's different. So that's, when you discuss with North American companies, very fast, you normally in cannabis, they ask you about, how to advertise, how to mailings, these things. And all these things are not possible. We don't have a connection to our patients. That's up to the pharmacies and the doctors. That's not us. We can't advertise products. We can't do big marketing campaigns. Look, we have a new product coming, helping you with X, Y, Z. It's not possible. And that's normally very difficult to explain to North Americans.
Who want to push the envelope the whole time.
But High Tide actually is very conservative in that sense and understands it's very important to be careful.
Mm-hmm.
And so far we have no problems. But they are helping us, of course, because we were small, we were growing fast. So what they expect is we have to report what we do, what we achieved in a timely manner and in a good quality of data. They bring some insights which we haven't thought about. So I would think it will drive us even further. Execution is important, and of course they expect execution for sure.
Yeah,
I would do too.
Yeah,
because they spent a lot of money on us. So I totally understand that. But at the same time, they bought us because of the team. What do we have? We have no big assets. It's a team. It's the relationships we build, and that's what they want to maintain. It's a good fit still.
Fantastic.
We can't complain.
I guess it's a little bit like hiring, right? Like you're trying to find an investor that shares the same values as you.
Yeah.
And you already mentioned it. So conservative or compliance is a focus, and then like good value for patients of product, right? Were any more values, or were those the three pillars to kind of say this is a good investor for us?
I think what we experienced too, I would add one thing is that on a personal level, the relationship is very reliable. And that's important for us because that's how we try to build our business. When we act with suppliers or customers, we try to be a fair partner. We try to stick to our word, and that's what we experienced with High Tide. And in that sense, we are very happy. Yeah,
there's trust.
Yeah, there's trust, and they have a good energy too, of course. So it fits. Actually, Raj and Franco, they align very much
Nice.
in that sense, and we like to work with them. Actually, yeah.
Was it only High Tide? I mean, they approached you, and then very quickly it happened, or did you guys have a chance to shop around a little bit?
Yeah, of course we had to look around, but in the end, it was clear to us very fast that High Tide is a partner we should go with.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Then it's, you lose a lot of energy and time if you try too much. And let's see if we can get a little more or whatever. If you think that's the right partner, then stick to that and try to build that relationship. That's important, I would say.
Absolutely. Some people in the industry were shocked by the valuation and how you, some people called it a fire sale even. Not that I'm getting that impression, but what drove that evaluation? You guys are the biggest in the market. I think a lot of people are raising on future revenues. It seems like you guys very much had a realistic perspective on what the value of the market is right now. There is still a lot of risk coming. I think the health minister also created some issues right after right after the deal.
Actually, during our
During the
process,
deal.
yeah.
How did that? What happened there?
Yeah, we were confronted with that question quite often. So first, we have to remember the two worlds, I would say, in Europe and North America. And North America is very much about future revenue, future profits, whatever, as a story. And I understand that. But at the same time, if let's say if your valuation is much higher, you have to deliver. That's also for you being bought. It's a problem if you can't deliver what they paid for. So I like the approach being a little bit more conservative. So that's the first thought on that. Second, if you look traditional M&A transactions, not story, not cannabis, with all the dreams of being cannabis being available for the public and recreational use and shops and all these things, whatever is driving these valuations. Traditional M&A transactions are looking at track record. So how many years have you delivered high profits? There were no many years.
It was like 2 years at that point.
Yes, and that's not even.
1 year.
We were 1 year, which was profitable, and then a few months in 25. And of course, yes, they were profitable, and we delivered on turnover and quantities, and that's why they bought us. But still, there's no long track record. And as you said, there are huge uncertainties in the market. Nobody knows what the politicians will decide. Now we have a new discussion with a reimbursement on flowers to be cut, and for the few patients which have it. All these uncertainties, if I have to put myself into the shoes of High Tide, I would be careful too. And in that point of time, having the guts to just buy, being the first. I would say all others who try to sell their companies should be very happy that High Tide and Raj were so confident to do it. Because that, as you said, it was the first sign of money flowing back. I would say it was a starting point.
Absolutely. Yeah, it got the ball rolling again financially for the market.
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. So whilst the deal was getting figured out, the health minister started kicking up a stink again here in Germany. Did that push their valuation down? Was there a risk that this deal wasn't going to go through with that kind of news? What was the situation there?
I would say normally an investor would think had to think twice to buy in that situation. But as I wouldn't say that the valuation was influenced by that.
Great.
As I said, our shareholders are very old shareholders are very conservative too. In that sense, they didn't put so much money in. So there was also no pressure for a very high valuation.
Mm-hmm.
That's if you have, let's say, if you burned 100 million euro, of course, the valuation you have to exit is much higher. So from our point of view, all parties involved are very happy.
I find the best situations like this is when it's kind of like from business school, but thinking global and acting local.
Yeah.
And I think whenever there's an example, back in 2018, there was multiple examples of Canadians with very deep pockets coming into Europe, thinking they can deploy their North American strategies. And I think there's only 1 or 2 of those companies that still have some sort of operations here in Europe, you know?
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense to me that worked out for you guys in that case.
Yeah.
Where the market is going, your philosophy of like affordable prices and everything that makes a lot of sense in this world of price compression, as the Europeans call it, I thought it was quite interesting. I think the numbers were like 7 euros a gram on average last year, and now we're at around just under €5 on average. The Europeans call it price compression, but if you speak to the Canadians, they call it price normalization.
For sure.
The margin is huge for them.
Of course, the supply chain is a little different. So
More expensive.
More expensive.
Yeah, of course.
You have pharmacies, they are creating the pharmaceutical product in the end. So they have a big burden compliance-wise. Yeah. But yes, of course, it's a normalization.
Did you know that this moment was going to come, that the price is going to drop massively and we should set up our operations to meet that new price at some point? Or was that something that just was another lucky situation?
Both. Both. The approach always was to have a lean structure. But at the same time, when you looked at the market, products which are good in quality and available at affordable prices, they were just missing. You can look in every market. That segment has to be served for sure. And that's all. We just were there very early with large quantities available. So that was a lucky part for sure. And
Fantastic.
then the law change helped a lot 2 years ago for sure.
Is it only flowers that you guys offer? Excuse my ignorance on this.
At the moment,
At the
yes.
moment, only flower. And
That's actually, maybe that's another take. Focus. That's very important, especially when you have a small team. If you don't focus, you need a large team. And of course, you have to try and think through different things. But at the end, focus on something which you can do good, which you can execute.
And sometimes to know what to focus on, a lot of people test loads of different things. Did you guys have a time where you brought in the premium €15 a gram products and just tried to go for that, and then the cheap, and then I actually know the middle is where we should be serving the market? Or how did that happen for you guys?
Yeah, so we tried premium products, what patients call premium, and we still have premium products, but we offer them with the same logic. So it's a premium product, premium category, but the lowest possible price in that category. And of course, we tried extracts a long time ago, and we might enter that in the future. But at that point, we found out for us, extracts are the wrong approach for our business and for our structure. So we focused on flower. Yes, we tried different things, of course.
And so extracts was wrong for you as it didn't fit into your operations, or it wasn't right for the market?
From our point of view, both.
Yeah, I agree with that.
The market was, let's say, very few players had a very strong position in the extracts market in a very small market.
Yeah.
So when we tried it, I think it's 3 years ago, we said, no, we can do that, but we have to burn a lot of money. And so let's better focus on what we can do, where we have the bigger effect.
Makes sense. And I think the price compression now, or price normalization, is forcing people to look for more margin, and therefore people will be looking at new product formats, right? And I think extracts is where the margin is at the moment still. Is that something that you guys are looking at now more intensely? And what kind of product categories? We've saw vapes come online from Curaleaf. I've even seen some rosin in the market from Demican, which I was really excited by. What's next for you guys?
It's actually hard to say, because the problem with all these products is that it's hard to bring them to the German market in a compliant way.
Mm-hmm.
So we have products which have to be made in a pharmacy. That's the issue. The pharmacy is doing the final product for the patient.
Mm-hmm.
And we can't release, as a producer, we can't release hash to the market and sell it to pharmacies. At least it's not so easy. So whatever we do, we have to be compliant. We first check what can be done in a compliant way, and then we look into it if it's a viable product commercially. But compliance is the key.
Personally, I think there's probably no better medical product than a great resin or rosin that is consumed through a puff-go or something like that, where it's without tobacco, it's a full cannabinoid profile, full terpene profile, incredibly quick onset, clean product. And I understand that there needs to be some sort of component that the pharmacy does, like the compounding component. For flowers, it's enough to just repackage. Why is it not enough to just repackage a rosin?
In that case, it's hard for producer to release the product to the market because we have to release the product to the market for the pharmacies, and there is a Deutsche Arzneibuch, a monograph has to be there, European Pharmacopoeia, and that is missing for this kind of products. So today, so we can't release these products. So we have to find a way of defining the product according to the set of rules we have in Europe, in order to release it to the market. And as long as that is not possible, we can't.
And how difficult is that redefinition?
That's a very long process, and it can be done only if a product is available in the market. So it's a little bit, I don't know if it's the same in English, but in Germany we would say Henne-Ei.
It's a chicken and egg.
Chicken and egg, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say I know a few players working on that, but so far it's not available in let's say for a lot of patients. I know, and you probably read that some pharmacies are trying to do that, and
Helios did it,
for example, yeah. But it's let's say politicians, regulators are looking very closely into these things, and we have to be careful to protect patients, to follow the rules, but at the same time we have to try, for sure. I agree with you.
Yeah. It's because I've never had to register a product that I don't understand how difficult this is. But I always thought you could probably get bubble hash certified and then bring that into the pharmacy and they just do the heat press. That's always how I thought this could make it to market. And we're not talking about anything that isn't on the flower already, right? If anything, it's a much cleaner product than flower. Anything green, you don't actually want to be smoking. It has no medical value whatsoever. We're just talking about trichomes here that give any sort of value. So I feel like, yeah.
Yeah, I understand that point of view. The issue is cannabis is not a traditional pharmaceutical in the sense we call it in Europe. Let's say it this way. It was available, let's say 100 years ago and further.
Yeah.
But for 100 years, it's not available, and there's a huge stigma, and all the rules we have are made for a different type of product. All pharmaceutical rules with all the studies we have to do, and that is not possible for cannabis, or at least it's not so easy. It's very hard. But we have these rules and regulations for a reason. We have had very bad experience with untested products, especially in Germany. We learned from that, and maybe it made us too rigid sometimes. I agree. But at the same time, I like the approach of being careful in the beginning rather than being sorry afterwards. When it comes to pharmaceutical products, of course, business-wise, sometimes you have to risk something, for sure.
Yeah.
But it's not the right approach to risk on the health
on the expense
and life
of the patient.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Understood.
So there you have to be careful, because that's the highest, let's say, value we have is patient safety. And we can't compromise on that.
Is it wrong to say that you guys won't be the main innovators of new products? You're going to see what works and then figure it out, analyze, and then do the same strategy again? Or are you going to be the guys pushing that envelope?
Yeah, let's see.
Let's see. What are the kind of low-hanging fruit products that you still want to include outside of flowers that is not that difficult to, you don't need to...
As discussed, extracts are there. Market is growing, especially because of the vapes, which are in the market right now. So, of course, we are looking into these things, yeah, for sure.
Fantastic. I guess from a regulatory perspective, it seems like, once the regulations came in April 2024, everyone got incredibly excited. The health minister put a damper on that excitement for a while. And now it seems like everyone's back on it, firing. The government is so stuck in arguments. But it seems like there won't be any changes until the next government comes, at the very least. How do you think about that? That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. But what is your understanding or thought process there?
I wouldn't be so sure.
Okay.
The law is in the parliament, and if they want to make it an actual law, it can happen very fast, within 2-3 weeks. Then it's done. So it's just a question of the politicians what they really want. And of course, we have bigger problems than that question in this country, for sure. And my personal view on that is that we have a set of all the things they want to achieve with that law change are possible with our actual laws. We just have to enforce them. The rules are there, so we can enforce that. It's hard, I know, but creating new rules when we don't enforce the rules we already have, it makes no sense for me. So I would prefer small changes over such a huge threat to the market. That's one point. And the other point is, in the end, if the law comes how it is now, we have to deal with that. That's how business in a highly regulated market works. And we will.
Yeah.
At least for our company, I can say we will.
There's a good example in Poland,
Yes.
right? Where they removed telemedicine. We saw a dip, and now we're seeing some significant growth again in the market. So the market does recuperate, figure out the problems and solves them, right?
Yeah.
I think the main fears was like getting rid of the delivery angle, specifically sending in post was under threat. Patients had to speak every 12 months to a doctor, which I can imagine being a logistical nightmare if that comes through with the people who are serving hundreds of thousands of patients, and from one day to another they need to create hundreds of thousands of consultations with doctors. Which ones of those do you think are most realistic to happen, or any of those where you'd say this is a bigger risk than the other?
As I said, in the end, both are not a risk, but just a change happening. We have to adopt to. So let's see. But with the telemedicine approach, with seeing a doctor once a year, that's actually, I see some problems with that. First of all, if you have seen a doctor, how can you prove to a telemedicine platform that you have been to a doctor? Because we have data protection laws prohibiting sharing data between doctors. So that's an issue which has to be solved first.
So they have to just show their prescription?
Yeah, but you don't see, if you look at the prescription, you don't see at that prescription if it was based on a video consultation or whatever on-site visit. You don't see it. So that's a standard format, and you can't judge according to the prescription. You just see the doctor's name, but you don't know how.
Understood.
So that's something which has to be sorted out first. Second, as I understood what they are proposing, that would only apply for telemedicine platforms which are sitting in Germany, not outside of Germany, because you can't regulate companies in other European countries. So that would be unfair. So these are my 2 points to that. The mail order delivery, that's another story that would change the market dramatically for the pharmacies. And I'm not sure if that is the right approach. I think for pharmacies, medical cannabis is
it's a lifeline.
I think pharmacies should work on making cannabis available in more pharmacies than punishing the few which are very successful. That's my wish, I would say.
Absolutely. At ICBC, I saw a lot of pharmacists who are new to the industry, and I'm like, why are you here? And they're like, this is our neighbor pharmacy was also going down the shitter like us, and now they're doing great. They're selling more than they ever have. It's like rescuing companies or pharmacies.
Sure.
And also, you're coming from traditional pharmaceuticals as well. Do you find it fair the way they look at cannabis in comparison to the other pharma? I feel like, did you get scrutinized? Did you have to deal with so many changes in traditional pharma on one product category?
Do I find it fair? Yes and no.
Okay.
You are right. There are many changes, but that's because the product is so new. We have that traditional set of rules, and cannabis does not fit into that rules. So regulations had to adapt. That's a normal process happening in traditional pharma too, but slower. So it's not unfair, it's just faster.
But in
cannabis, yeah. The whole industry is so much faster than any other industry I've observed. We are also doing the mistakes from other industries in a tremendous speed.
Yeah.
So I think it's not unfair in that way. But at the same time, of course, there's also still a big stigma when it comes to cannabis. But we have to ask ourselves as industry, what is our part in that? We are very aggressively advertising, we as an industry, not Remexian. That product is advertised very aggressively. Social media, it's everywhere. And of course, that's causing, let's say, more conservative thinking people asking themselves, what is happening here? It is supposed to be a pharmaceutical product, but they are acting like it is recreational. And that's something we have to ask ourselves as industry. What is our part in that?
Yeah, it's a good point, because I got annoyed. I was like, how is it that they're going to get rid of cannabis delivery, but I can order opioids, I can order multiple medicines that if I take 1 or 2 pills too much, I could die. I guess we're more of a thorn in the eye of the regulator based on the marketing approach.
Yeah,
right?
You're right with that comparison. And that's what I want to say. Telemedicine and mail order delivery. That's something we need in this country. We are talking about problems in rural areas with doctors and pharmacists. And when it comes to cannabis, it's even worse, because a lot of doctors are not experienced with cannabis at all. Pharmacists too. So there's still a long way to go to make it a normal product available in all pharmacies. And as long as that is the case, it's a bad idea to ban mail order delivery or telemedicine. And we have to look at the cannabis industry from a different point of view, I think, in Germany. We have, for a very long time, we experienced a completely new industry evolving, and Germany being one of the leading countries in that. And not only in theory, we are very good when it comes to ideas and patents
100%.
and all these things, but we can't execute in terms of businesses, industry here in Germany. And now we have an industry which is very successful. And all we do is look at the side, what is wrong, what is happening here. Instead of, okay, yes, we have to improve, but let's be careful not to kill that industry. So that's my advice. If I'm, I'm not to make an advice, but if I would be, my advice would be careful and be happy what happened here. Yes. We have to act on some points, but then let's use the laws we have.
Yeah, I thought it was crazy to, as you mentioned, there's people in rural areas that don't have access to pharmacies very easily. Then there was an argument that the touch point, the face-to-face contact with the pharmacist is another checkpoint of quality for the patient. But then obviously, I can't imagine forcing a chronically ill patient to have to get into a car and drive to get their medicine. It makes so little sense to me. Is there a real risk at this point that any of these things are going to come through?
It's unpredictable.
Yeah, no crystal ball.
No, unfortunately not.
Unfortunately not. Now we've gone over regulations. I guess what I'm always, and it's a bit biased because we're a recruitment agency, but really fascinated about how people build teams to execute on their goals. And specifically, if you've done this in a very lean manner, right? This industry is a startup industry, so we look at how can we, as lean as possible, set up a specific team. Do you have a specific philosophy there? What do you look for? How to build the team to stay lean and still achieve your goals? What's your thought process there?
The most important hire in Remexian was Franco, my co-CEO.
Yeah.
That was more luck.
Did you know him from before?
Sorry?
Did you know Franco?
No. I hired a headhunter.
Oh.
Because I looked for a project manager for that topic, And they brought me Franco. I think we had an interview that lasted 4 hours or something. So very interesting. We were connected very soon and it worked out. So that was more luck, I would say. But then over time, we both understood that having a diverse team in terms of qualities and thinking and is very important. at the same time, we need people who are willing to work hard, but having fun. So it's very much fun to work in Remexian, and that's what we like. We try to maintain that culture very much. That is the point actually where we are very careful who we hire.
To not upset the vibe.
Yeah, the vibe is important.
I ask this question a lot because of just intrinsic interest there. We also truly believe that an industry and therefore also a company is only as good as the people in it. And you've just touched on it as well. Everyone that I ask, most of the people in these seats have been very successful in what they've done. And when I ask these questions, they're hypersensitive about a certain set of values and making sure that the people that they bring in fit that set of values. What is that for Remexian? Anybody who wants to join Remexian, what kind of set of values does this person need to bring?
You have to have a certain sense of humor, for sure. That's important.
Yeah.
Of course, you have to be willing to work hard. We are too small and too lean, and we want to achieve too much to be just
coasting along.
Yeah, no, that's not possible. So you want to deliver. You have to deliver, and you have to have that energy. You have to be willing to learn a lot. If you do, you can achieve very much in that industry and in our company, and we value what you bring in. That's another, let's say, good quality of Franco. He's thinking of how to give back to the people who are working to us. That's his approach, and he's very open with that and willing to give it up front. So me personally, I'm the other way around. First execute, then
yeah.
And that combination is funny again.
Are you bad cop and he's good cop?
From time to time, it's different. In the beginning, he's a good cop, but if you give in advance and you don't receive back, then of course that's bad too. So it's I think that balance we try to build is very important, and it's hard to maintain.
That's an interesting dynamic.
I may add, we try to hire locally because other than you would think, we are very not home office driven.
Oh, everyone's in the office?
Most of them, yeah. Of course, sales not, so they are traveling a lot. But most of our employees are in our container offices to maintain that relationship. Because that's harder via electronic ways. You have to see people, you have to talk to them, you have to eat together. So food is important.
Yeah, absolutely. There is, you just mentioned salespeople, so this shot into my head. We do a lot of sales, key account, pharma reference, all for the market. But I'm seeing a new trend, which is, especially after MedCanG, that people are moving away from the pharma reference and finding more, not that they're moving away, but I think there's more of a focus on finding hustler sales guys, more from FMCG, CPG, that key account kind of profile that hits the pharmacies. How do you think about that? Is that something, because you come from traditional pharma as well, how does that look? And is that something you're seeing? And even when you hear this, can you relate to that need?
If we look at our industry, the approach to product from the patient is a little different from traditional pharma. So it's very much patient driven still, which is not so good. So we have to have more doctors who understand, okay, this patient might profit from cannabis, so we should try. But the reality, if we are honest, it's the patients who are asking the treatment in most of the cases. Then in the beginning, we had very few doctors which were well trained. So doctors are important, yes, but not in our industry so much, if we are honest. But that's changing. So we have to be very careful. We have now a lot of doctors which are actually prescribing cannabis, having good experience with cannabis and patients, and learning a lot and giving that back to pharmacies too. But at the same time, pharmacies are very important in our industry. They are the gatekeeper. For sure. So you have to work with pharmacies. And for us as a pharmaceutical company, the pharmacy is our customer. Yes, we serve patients, but our customer is a pharmacy. So that has to be our focus. We have to build that relationship. We have to be a fair partner. And therefore, the people working with the pharmacies are very important.
Yeah, I think you just mentioned that. I think there was at the beginning of the industry, everyone looked at pharma and said, okay, we need to get healthcare professionals on board. So millions flooded into educating doctors who had no basic education on the endocannabinoid system or anything, nor did they want to be educated. We placed some of the first doctors in the UK and here that were prescribing cannabis. And turns out if you just did 7 years of medical school, you don't want to leave and be stamped as the medical cannabis doctor straight away. So they weren't interested. So it was a small fraction, and really they only woke up once there was 10, 20 people in their waiting room saying, I'm here for cannabis. So the needle moved once those marketing dollars went from educating healthcare professionals to actually educating the public that this is a route that they can take, that this is available, that it's clean, pharmaceutical. Would you agree with that?
It's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah.
True. But I would say it would have happened the other way too, but slower.
But slower. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Again, we as an industry, we have to ask ourselves, is it worth it that we try to grow very fast, very strongly, aggressively, that we attack each other in the market so strongly in advertising patients? And if we are too aggressive, we might harm patients who needs a product, who actually needs a product. And that's something I don't like. I have to be honest.
You prefer the steady growth so that there's no risk for people that truly rely on this medicine to not have access from at one point.
Access of patients. That's the key point. And of course, telemedicine is helping. The mail order delivery is helping. That was always the thinking of Remexian, and bringing affordable products for those patients who don't have that reimbursement. That's a question of access. It's not pricing per se. It's access. It's a huge difference if you pay 5-6 euro or 12-15 per gram. It's a huge difference.
When I go to my cultivation clients, especially the ones in low-cost markets, they're talking about producing at like 50 cents a gram, and it's just crazy how that price has gone down. And there's a real pressure to hit that price if the Germans are going to buy your product.
But then you still have to have the production chain to make a pharmaceutical product out of that. The product has to have the quality, which is necessary. So it's not so easy to say, okay, 50 cents is a new standard. Yeah, of course, growers have to receive a price for that. And growing cannabis is actually very expensive, capital intense and labor intense, energy intense. So it's not so cheap. So we are very happy, to be honest, that we are not a grower, but a distributor.
Yeah, lucky that you didn't get that license.
Yeah.
Yeah. In terms of new markets coming online from like suppliers, we're looking at Thailand now as like the newest market, and already seeing some Thai product making it over the pond. Anything that you're excited about? I mean, for you, it was mainly European sourced and Canadian, right?
We bought a lot in still buying in Portugal. Mm-hmm. In the past, we bought in Denmark too, but we also bought from Israel and South Africa, and so it's not only Canada, but Canada is of course a big
primary driver.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And of course, we are looking into Thailand, and we'll have Thai flower if and when the flower has the quality we need in terms of pharmaceutical product.
Is that hard to find for you at the moment?
I wouldn't say it's hard to find, but it's a long process. You can't just go to a grower saying, oh, it's nice to meet you, I like you, I buy your product, and next month I have it in Germany. It's a long process of checking the quality, how they grow, how they treat the product after growing actually, what is the process until the product is in Europe, how it is released, how it is sent to the pharmacies. That's a long process, and sometimes it takes up to a year because we want to be careful. We have to make sure the product in terms of pharmaceutical quality fits every standard.
Wow. So procuring it or bringing on a new supplier can take up to a year for you. Not just the product, it's the supplier. Once the supplier is validated, new products is quick.
And if the supplier is not yet qualified or certified, it's even longer.
Of course, yeah. And is there one supplier market outside of Canada, of course, that you're most excited by or interested by, or is it just whoever hits the spec and is good quality? You don't really care where it comes
in the end, you have to hit the spec, and then it's a commercial question. Is the product received well enough in the market, and is the price good enough? Then, additionally, you have to trust the people who are producing the products, because that's important too. You can write a lot on paper, but you have to trust the people. You are spending a lot of money on these products.
Partnership, right?
It's a partnership in good and bad times. So that has to be built, and that takes time too.
Yeah. I wanted to ask around Portugal. You know, they had a bit of a bad time last year.
True.
And I live in Portugal myself. I'm a huge fan of it. In Europe, I think it's by far the strongest cultivation hub, and will remain the strongest cultivation hub. But I sometimes, looking at these low-cost suppliers being online and still driving price down, talking about those guys looking at 50-cent production per gram, does Europe have a place in the supplier market in the long term?
Europe or Portugal?
Portugal.
Let's talk about Portugal a little bit. I like that country very much too. I like the people. It's a nice culture. They have also a very strong pharmaceutical background, a strong pharmaceutical industry, and oversight by the regulators there. So they, and you're right, a relatively low cost. In that sense, Portugal has a perfect setup, at least in Europe, to be a good producer of cannabis. And they did. They did execute on that.
Absolutely.
And that is a very sad thing of last year, from my point of view, that I think that harmed that image Portugal created as a fast-acting but strongly compliant country in that for pharmaceutical cannabis. But we still believe Portugal has everything it needs to succeed. So it might slow down, and but if the regulators is now finding back to let's say a pragmatic way of working with the companies. Pragmatic doesn't mean compromising on anything, but helping the companies meeting the standards rather than punishing them. That's what happened last year, in my view. Of course, there was some punishment. It was not meant to be punishment, but it is a result. The regulators tried everything to solve the issues, and as always, we Germans have experience in that. Overreaction happens.
Overcomplicated everything.
Yes, for sure. But it's improving now, and I strongly believe Portugal still has everything it needs to succeed there. But they have to deliver now, for sure.
I hope so, and that's why I was so interested to ask you, because you're obviously a big buyer there, and whether that image completely deteriorated for the buyers here in Germany, or whether it's an understanding of, okay, it's a hiccup, this is going to fix itself.
Two things. First, or maybe three. First, I said relationships are important in good times and bad times, and that's what we strongly believe. So our partners in Portugal suffered a lot last year. That was very hard for them, and we feel very sorry for them. And we want to work with them for different reasons. First, we like them. That's simple.
Important.
It's very
important.
So, second, they do a good job in terms of quality and compliance. They always did, and they are doing today, at least the partners we have. But there's another point, and that's true with all industries, but with pharmaceutical industry especially. When you're going to such a huge problems like they did last year, and you can solve it with your regulator. The relationship with the regulator, the compliance, everything is stronger than before, and that's something we have to see. So Portugal, it might be harmed in the sense that Germans and other buyers are looking at it. Oh, it's too slow. What if things like that happen again? But if we look at this at the right approach, we should say, okay, this happens in every evolving industry.
100%.
They've gone through it already. So
Bit of risk removed.
Not only risk removed, but they've proven they can survive a situation like that. They can deal with it. They can adapt, and all these things are strengthening an organization.
Yeah.
And that's for us. That's good to know.
Fantastic.
Yeah? So I strongly, maybe I advertise Portugal a little bit.
Diamonds are made under pressure,
yes,
in a sense.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Oil too, but yeah.
Yeah. No, really cool statement.
Yeah.
Really, really cool. And now, I guess, Stefan, what are you excited by next? What is kind of the focus point for Remexian? Are you guys staying at 30 people, or are you blowing up now with the high tide money? What's going on?
You know, the number of people is not a good measurement for, let's say, success in a business. So that isn't the number I want to advertise. But of course, we have to grow when, in terms of people, when we grow the business further, and we want to grow for sure. It's a new industry, and being part of helping shaping it as a relevant company in that industry, that's actually very fascinating, and probably you won't experience that twice in your life. So if you look at our industry from this point, we are very blessed, and we should be very thankful that we have that chance. So that's, I enjoy that very much.
Yeah. Absolutely. What would you say, if you're speaking to the industry now, what do you think is important for companies to focus on and do in order to attract the capital and the kind of investors that you have? What should people be focusing on to make sure that they can be successful here?
Compliance is the most important thing, because that's the base. If you don't have that, you won't be successful in the long term, for sure. Then, of course, I don't like that term, but I think North Americans are saying operational excellence. But that's true. You have to deliver, and don't grow too big in terms of people. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Be efficient, focus. Understand that it's a pharmaceutical product. Maybe that's the main point for our industry. Please understand it's a pharmaceutical product. Don't go for recreational and we are just covering it as a pharmaceutical product. That's a wrong approach. If we want to have recreational cannabis, we should do that as a society. Yes, it's okay, but it's a different business.
Yeah.
This is traditional pharma, not yet, but it should be in a few years. And on the way to that, it's a long way. And we won't, in my view, we won't see traditional licensed pharmaceutical finished product like we know all others in cannabis, which can be used instead of flowers.
Yeah,
that's
alternative.
Not alternative. Yeah, I don't see that yet, because it's too difficult to manage all the studies around that. At least not in the near future. So we have to live with flower extracts, so what we have today, but we have to treat it as what it is. It's a pharmaceutical product.
Absolutely. And obviously, without beating around the bush, we have got wellness and recreational consumers that are now using a medical system to get to their cannabis. Is that a problem for you?
So we allege it is the case.
Allegedly,
and
exactly.
I think, most probably it's true that we have that, but at the same time we have no data supporting that. That's a huge problem we have. And even further, we haven't defined what is a patient in the sense of cannabis. We always look at, it's reimbursed if there is no alternative amongst other products. But in the end, if a patient feels better, if the side effects are better, whatever, if it improves the life of a patient, that is a patient, in my view. And it's not on me or you to judge. It's the doctor. And therefore, a strong doctor-patient relationship has to be established over time to decide, is that a patient or not? And if, then he gets a prescription. So, yes, most probably there are pure consumers, but I have the big question, how many of the so-called consumers are actually patients serving themselves at the black market, which can't be the goal.
Exactly.
So that's something we have to discuss. I don't have the answer, the definite answer, but we have to discuss as a society, what do we see as a patient? A patient can, if you look in our laws, what is a patient? What is a pharmaceutical product? Then, of course, a product should cure, a product should, let's say, reduce, minimize pain, whatever. But a pharmaceutical product can also prevent things. So the definition of a patient is very wide, and I don't want to make it too wide. That's not my point. All I'm saying is we have to discuss what is an actual patient and not just think and allege. And so I think that's a little bit too easy.
Yeah, no, very interesting point. For me, especially, Medcan G came, and then the health minister, who's responsible for public health, thinks it's better to send everyone back into the illicit market, right? Where it's full of heavy metals, pesticides, no transparency on product whatsoever. So for me, even if, let's say it's true that we have a huge portion of patients being recreational users, I still think it's a better public safety measure than the alternative. Is that even a fair statement in pharma, or is it two separate worlds?
Again, yes and no. I understand your point, and I understand from where you're coming in that argument. And if we just for a moment remove the pharmaceutical thinking, then of course, in total, it's safer, it's better for the society, for for our, let's say, economy and everything, to just serve people with licensed products or with safe products instead of going to the black market. I agree on that point. But at the same time, if you look from the pharmaceutical point, a pharmaceutical product has always side effects. And you have to balance the positive effects and the side effects. And you can't mix it with just consumption. So that's difficult for pharmacists and healthcare professionals to mix that. So that's a difficult discussion. I agree from the broader view, but it's difficult to bring that in. If you want to achieve that, then you have to make recreational cannabis available. Or you have to say, let's say, you have to create a licensed shops. And in my wishful thinking, pharmacies could do that.
Yeah.
They have the knowledge, they have the experience, they have the structure to do that. We have the industry to produce these products safely. But we have to admit it's not a pharmaceutical approach. So then we have to be honest and have to change the laws in that sense. But at the same time, I agree with you. It's too easy to say, oh, that's misuse of pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
That's too easy. And it's what we are discussing now is too generic and not data-driven. And so let's have a look at the data. If they are available, if they are not available, then let's collect the data before we act. Because harming patients is the worst choice we can have. We can do.
Yeah, I get frustrated sometimes by the lack of focus on taking from the illicit market. I think it's a health metric, of the industry
for sure,
to say how much is the illicit market going down, right? And I think that is just not in the focus enough at all.
It's from your point, but it's not from the farmer point of view, for sure. So, but at least we should discuss that more. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Stefan, anything you want to give anybody on the way?
I think what we do at Remexian is a good advice for everybody. Be compliant, but have fun.
I love that. Stefan, it's been such a pleasure. I love your guys' story and what you guys have achieved. I wish you guys all the best going forward.
Thank you.
And I hope to stay in touch.
Yeah, and thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
The Cannabis Conversation, powered by Lumino. As always, thank you for joining us, and do subscribe or follow this podcast to be the first to catch future episodes.